Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so rounding. Let's get right down to it. Rounding is, I think, as I said last time, rounding is always one of the most difficult concepts to teach, and I think, again, it's mainly just because there's not that many real-life examples that fourth graders can relate to. For example, they can say to someone if they are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old that they are around 10 years old, or somebody who is 63 can say I'm just over 60 years old. Those would be real life examples of rounding that maybe they could identify with, but not too many fourth graders really have the experience of having $4,872,342 in the bank to round to the nearest million with. So it's just a concept that goes over their heads, but it's part of what I'm required to teach, so that's what we do. Let's go back earlier this week. I gave them this worksheet. One of the issues I ran into this week is I handed out this worksheet. We had number 1 and number 2. This says very clearly round 236 to the nearest 10. And then it says which tens is 236 between. Number 2 says round 236 to the nearest 100, which hundreds is 236 between. Within 5 minutes of passing this out, first period, I think Wednesday morning, I had no less than 4 students come up to me and say, Mr. Haney, why are there 2 of the same question? Which tells me they're not reading the question, which is going to be really important, especially with the ACAP, because it's going to say things about tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. It's going to use the words digits, the words values. They need to know what those are, what place value is. So I'm trying to use all these terms as much as possible, but if they're not reading, it's not going to help them any. But those who did read it should have known that 236, if we think about that number, 236, one of the tens that it's between is 230. If we come over here and we break it into expanded form, we have 2 hundreds, 3 tens, and no ones. So this is the one we're worried about. But 230, there's a complicated thing that if we're thinking about base 10 blocks, 230 can be made with 2 100s. Okay, these stand for the big blocks that I've been using that have 100 in them, 100 ones. And then you can have 3 tens, and that's 230. Or you could take these hundreds and expand them into tens. And so then technically this would be 10 tens. And then this is 10 more tens, so that's 20 tens, plus 3 tens. You have 23 tens that make up 230. It's a whole lot of words to say. Basically, they should know that 236 is between 230 and 240. So if they were to make a number line to help them with this, or even the roller coaster number line, on this side of the number line, they're going to have 230. On the other side, it should be 240. But it's such a crazy concept for them to grasp. Just know this is kind of the way they want to be thinking about it. After they have figured out which 2 tens 236 is between, because 236, as we know, if this is 235 or this is 235, it's going to be just beyond that, about here. If we're using our roller coaster number line, it is physically, visibly with our eyeballs closer to 240. So there you go. But also if we count 236, we only have 4 more up to 240, whereas we have 6 away from 230. So the second blank, they would fill that out with 240. It is closer to 240 than 230. And I got all kinds of things in these. I had 235 and 237, which is technically true, except that it says the nearest 10, and neither 235 nor 237 are multiples of 10. Anyway, so there's that, and then you just take this same answer. Since 236 is closer to 240, then 236 rounded to the nearest 10 is 240. And do the same thing down here, except we're going to the nearest 100. This has 2 hundreds in it, so our first one is going to be 200. The very next 100, if you're counting by hundreds, is 300, 100, 200, 300, 400. 236 falls somewhere in between those two, and then it's our job to find out which one is closer. And so they can use a number line, they can use expanded form, I've given them lots of tools to use, and we even, later on, we talked about, in my last video, I mentioned the 5 or more, raise the score, 4 or less, let it rest. But they understand that, but they're not quite sure how to use it, how to apply it with different place values. So in this case, let's talk about it. If we were rounding to the nearest hundred, we're going to look to the hundreds place, which is 2 in this case. And then we look to the place to its right, which is a 3. If that digit to the right of the place we're rounding to is 4 or less, this number that we're rounding is going to stay as it is. So right now it's a 2. Since 3 is 4 or less, it's going to stay as 2. If this were a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, if it was 5 or more, we will raise the score. 2 would become 3, and we'd have it's closer to 300. But in this case, the 3 is 4 or less. So 236 is closer to 200 than 300, and therefore 236 rounded to the nearest 100 is 200. Okay, that was Wednesday. Thursday, I gave them a worksheet that was even more, it was larger numbers, and we didn't get all the way through it, but in doing that, I found that we were still having a whole lot of confusion. With that said, I'm going to be very lenient with grading on this test. I'm trying to decide how I can most fairly grade this upcoming test, but also make sure that they're understanding the concepts that they should be understanding. So anyway, today we went through this. We spent 30 minutes in each class just going through this together. I'm going to attempt to make it a whole lot less than 30 minutes for you guys because I don't want to be here that long, and I know you don't want to listen to a video for that long. But here it is, rounding study guide. For numbers 1 through 6, so that's all of them. There's only 6. For all of these, we're going to look at the number 8,725,409 right here, to the nearest place value, the given place value. So number 1, we're going to round to the nearest millions. Number 2, the 100,000s place. 3, 10,000s, 4,000s, 500s, and 6 tens place. But it's all going to be with this number. Like I said, I'll get to it. It says use the empty space and or the back of the paper to show your work. Examples of showing your work could be a roller coaster number line, which we see here, or a place value chart, or use expanded form. My other issue with this worksheet and the worksheet I gave them next is I had a whole lot of students coming and asking me for help, which was fantastic. I want them to come to me and ask me for help. But of all the students that came to me, I never saw this. I never saw this. I never saw this. I never saw this. I never saw any of the tools I've given them to solve these. I never even saw any of this. They were trying to do it all in their head, and I've told them, if I give you a tool, use it. It's silly to try to build a house with sticks and mud if you have power tools and all the materials you need. So make sure you encourage your kids to use the tools that they're given. So number 1, millions place. Let's get to it. Millions place. If we were to put this on the number line, we're going to look at, I got tired of writing it, so I made some post-it notes. We have 8 in the millions place, okay? We have a 7 in the 100,000s place. So these are going to tell us how to make our number line. They're going to tell us what's closest and everything. 8 in the millions place, so we start with 8 million. Let me zoom in, I know that's small. We start with 8 million. And if we count by millions, the very next million is 9 million. So this is 1 million in between here. This is a huge number line. And I don't think they understand that. And I don't know how to make them understand that because I don't have a million of anything. And neither do they. But, okay. 8 million to 9 million. We need to figure out where this number is on that number line. Well, since there's a 7 in the 100,000s place, we know it's going to be on the right side because 7 is 5 or more. So it's going to at least be here. But if we think about it, we have 8,100,000, 200, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be somewhere around here. And it's going to be closer to the 9 million. So we're going to roll over to the 9 million. Cool. So that means that this is closer to 9 million physically. But also, if we think about the 5 or more raise the score, that means we have 8 either resting at 8 or being raised to 9. Because of the place value to its right is a 7, it's 5 or more, we're going to raise the score. So 8 will become 9. But it's in the millions place, so we've got to replace all the other ones with million. Okay, some people like this way, and that's great, and I encourage them to use that. Some people like this way, and that's great. I encourage them to use it. I told the students, I tried to make it very clear to them to use whichever of these tools works the best for them. I'm not trying to get them to do just one way. Whichever one works best for them, use it. Anyway, so that one rounds to 9 million. That is our answer for number 1. Get rid of that. Moving on to number 2, we have hundred thousands place. So in this one, we're not looking at the 8, we're looking at the 7. 7 is in the hundred thousands place. That's the one that is either going to rest or be raised because of the 1 to its right. Well, we have a 2 here. That's 20,000. But it's, so on here, we are between 8,700,000 and 8,800,000. 8,720,000 is going to be somewhere around here, which means it's going to fall back to 8,700,000 because it's closer. Part of the difficulty in teaching this is just saying all these giant numbers 87 times a day, so bear with me. Okay, so we see on the number line that it's physically closer to 8,700,000 than 8,800,000. But if we just look at this and we do the raise the score thing, 2 is less than 4. It's 4 or less. So we're going to let 7 rest. Okay, so then 7 is resting. Everything else is a 0 because we're looking for the nearest 100,000. Okay, but here is one of the most important parts of this whole video. And I've been trying so hard to get this into the kids' heads. This is not the answer. This is nowhere near the answer. If we were to zoom out of this number line and we were to compare 8,700,000 to 700,000 that they're putting as their answer, we are 8 million away. And nobody freaked out about that the way I hoped they would. So I started talking about money, and I said, imagine that you are somehow so wealthy that you have $8,725,409 in your bank account. Well, one day you have some reason to go to the bank and you ask, hey, could you just kind of give me an estimate of how much money I have in my bank account to the 100,000s place? Well, if you go in and they say, oh, yeah, Mr. Haney, you have $700,000 in your bank account. I told the kids I would pass out, I would throw up, I'd throw a fit. I would freak out if I thought I had this much in my bank account and they told me I had this much. And some of the kids started to get it at this point. But it really wasn't the reaction I was looking for. But they just don't understand. If this 8 is not here, this is way wrong. So I've tried to really encourage them. Everything to the left of the place value that we're rounding to must stay the same, or we are way off. Everything to the right of the place value that we're rounding to is going to change to a 0 because we're actually rounding to the nearest whatever place value. The one that we underline, the one that we're talking about, will either stay as it is or it will just go up 1 digit. Those are our only options. Okay, so our closest 100,000 to 8,725,409 is 8,700,000. And so that's what we wrote in our study guide. Number 3. I'm going to try and speed it up at this point. I hope we've gotten the concept so far. So 8,725,000, we are now looking at the 10,000s place. And our 1,000s place is what determines whether this 10,000 stays at 2 or becomes a 3. Well, it's a 5, so we're going to raise the score. And we can go ahead and do that here. The 5 is going to become 0. Everything to the right will become a 0. But remember, if I have $8 million in the bank and I'm told I have 30,000, I'm going to be upset. So we've got to have the 8,700,000 before the 30,000, or it's wrong. And if we look at our this thing, our roller coaster, 8,700,000. What number are we on? 3. 8,725,409. 8,725,000 is going to be halfway between 8,720,000 and 8,730,000. So since it's in between, and it's even honestly a little bit to the right, it's going to go forward to 8,730,000. Okie dokie. Number 4. We are going to the thousands place. So the thousands, well, you know it. 8,725,409 to the thousands place. 5 is in the thousands place. 4 is in the hundreds place. 5 is either going to stay 5 or it's going to become 6. Because we have a 4 or less, it is going to rest. We have 5 in the thousands place. We have 0, 0, 0. I don't have 5,000 in my bank account. I have 8,725,000 in my bank account. Wishful thinking, right? But also, since 8,725,409 is closer to 8,725,000, it rounds to that and not up to the greater one. Number 5. Number 5, we're rounding to the hundreds place. So 4 is in the hundreds place. 0 is in the tens place. 4 is going to rest at 4 and not go up to 5 because 0 is less than 4. 400, we want to make sure that we leave everything over here and that we do not lose it. 8,725,400 is the nearest hundred to 8,725,409. Once again, not a clue when you would ever do this in real life, but it's in the standards, so I'm going to teach it. And lastly, 8,725,409 to the nearest tens place. We have a 0 in the tens place. We look to the place to its right to see whether we stay, whether we rest at 0, or whether we raise to 1. Well, because 9 is 5 or more, 0 becomes 1. We are moving up to the next 10. Everything to the left is staying as it is, otherwise we are angry. There's your answer for the last one, 8,725,410. And as we see on the number line, it is so close to it. It will round right up to it. And that's all for this week. Have a nice long weekend.